The contrast between his thoughts and his humble demeanor was striking. I blinked and looked closely at Gu Qinghan, who stood next to me. I asked Gu Qinghan, "Did you hear that?" He just grabbed his head. Man Tongtong spoke up. "If I hadn't allowed it, I probably would have heard. Why is he your brother who disappeared many years ago? It seems only I can read this new guy's mind." Any thoughts that came to my mind, I immediately threw aside. Basically, I'm just small fry, not much help. I hope the storytellers will try to prevent the collapse of the world. Lessons are over. I took the bread from Gu Qinghan and started chewing. When the wind picked up, I approached him with a gift. It was a present for our new classmate. Strange thoughts swirled in my head. The system's purpose this time was just too enticing. She must be very sensitive to kisses. I almost choked at the thought. Gu Qinghan couldn't help but cough and frowned. Gold on his back, salt on his lips, and this guy was like an inedible pig. I was furious. "Have you been raising pigs?" Gu Qinghan gave me a mocking look. I had no idea what he was talking about, but we definitely didn't have any pigs. Chen Zonggu's expression as he watched us didn't bode well. I was a little offended by Gu Tongsu. He was clearly overreacting. I simply ignored him, which made me feel awkward. I just wanted to apologize to him, but a real thunderclap went off in his head. Who is this system man? Does such a role exist in the novel? Like a clown, the owner is calm, just some kind of ambiguous, absurd character. I laughed coldly, and Gu Qinghan only slightly opened his mouth in apology. He then picked up a box of delicate cookies symbolizing love and laughed as he looked at Chen Feng. "I'm very sorry, but I'm allergic to cookies," Chen Feng said disappointedly. "So what exactly are you allergic to? I'll bring something else tomorrow," Gu Qinghan quickly added. "To be precise, I'm allergic to people." Chen Feng heard it as well as we did. Gu Qinghan rejected him. She laughed so loudly that I felt embarrassed for her persistence. I thought she was about to be pushed away. But she was delighted. "I trust the system. She really is an S-tier heroine, too shameless, but I even like it. Who made her so beautiful?" I opened my mouth to attract the attention of this crowd of onlookers. "I think I'm a little stupid. Physical education class has begun." I sat under a tree with a book and Gu Qinghan lay on my lap, his eyes closed, listening to music. I watched the students. Someone was sitting under the neighboring tree. "Okay, I'll tell you. I heard Gu Qinghan would be at the opening ceremony. When it was announced he wasn't interested in a relationship, many decided not to bother him. I, however, had high hopes for him. At first I thought the same, but when you see him in person, your opinion changes. He's one of those guys who looks young and progressive." I looked down, still lying there. This young Gu Qinghan, who had been through so much, slept peacefully. I wanted to touch him. Soon, he slowly opened his eyes. I calmly took the earphone out of his ear. My legs went numb as I spoke. Gu Qinghan rubbed his eyes, slowly stood up and pinched my leg. The complaint was sharp and lying down became uncomfortable. I stood up and brushed the grass off my pants. "How can you be so stern? You wanted me to eat, and now you're making me stretch." Gu Qinghan turned my novel over in his hands and asked what I thought of it. I picked up a book about a powerful CEO. "I'm just curious what the main characters look like." Gu Qinghan smiled, covering his mouth with his hand. I looked stupid and clearly didn't want to make things worse. After school, the sky became cloudy. The rain wasn't falling too loudly. Gu Qinghan and I stood under the canopy, looking into the distance with a pensive expression. "Do you think we'll come back?" I asked. Gu Qinghan replied that the chances were slim, but he was 100% certain. I was surprised at how calmly he spoke about it. Gu Qinghan remained unperturbed. "I'll help you, no need to be so angry. I'm not so annoyed that I need to thank you." He smiled, not letting me continue grumbling. We were interrupted by a male voice. "Gu, do you have an umbrella?" "If you don't mind, take mine." I turned around and saw Chen Feng with an umbrella. I looked at Gu Qinghan, who responded in a weak, indifferent tone. "No need, thank you." Chen Feng looked slightly embarrassed, his eyes glistening with moisture. "Take this, it's not good to catch a cold in such rain," he insisted, and at that time I heard his thoughts. Every woman has a strange affinity for the word sister. I remembered how she called Gu Qinghan's sister. I rubbed my hand involuntarily and glanced at my friend curiously. Not a muscle moved on his face. "Sorry, classmate, I don't remember you. I have a brother, and my mother taught me from childhood not to accept gifts from strangers." Chen Feng's face instantly changed. Gu was incredibly witty, and I couldn't help but admire how quickly he could put people in their place. However, Gu Qinghan's expression remained just as cold and merciless. I could only grit my teeth as I watched. "Then I won't bother you," he said, and quickly disappeared around the corner. I heard him curse under his breath. "They're waiting for me, I'll be back," I said. My plan seemed perfect. The problem was clearly the heroine. I glanced at the gadget I'd brought with me and wondered what to do next. Gu Qinghan snatched my phone and called the driver. 5 minutes later, we were already sitting in the car. I chuckled and asked him what it felt like to be called sister. Gu Qinghan looked at me without a trace of kindness. "If you decide to test this on yourself, keep in mind, I will not be lenient with you." Gu Qinghan was clearly irritated. I looked at him with genuine sympathy. "You're creating the image of a cold and inhumane guy. This way, you'll be left completely alone in the future." Gu Qinghan replied, "Don't worry, if I get lonely, I'll just take you with me." I shook my head involuntarily. People online wrote that I must be a silly girl, but Gu Qinghan coldly remarked, "Silence is what's truly attractive." "You have brains, be smarter," I told myself. My nerves were shaking me. I was so nervous I was scared. Uncle Siki just smiled as he looked at us. "Are you two still that close?" I was confused by his words. While I was at a loss, Chen Feng became more and more impudent. He rose before dawn, dressed up, and was very pleased with his hair. The system told him that Gu Qinghan was on the basketball court, so he set out to find her. But when he looked around, he didn't see Gu Qinghan. He didn't bother asking the system again. "You said he's there, right?" The system hinted to look at the ball under the tree. Chen Feng turned around and saw Gu Qinghan in a white uniform, calmly sipping milk tea. A guy who had just finished playing was standing nearby. Chen Feng approached them. What a coincidence, Gu came to watch basketball, and he blurted out everything he had prepared in advance. "What a moron, why does he always have to interfere?" I heard Chen Feng scolding me silently. "I've long been accustomed to this kind of thing. If there are no seeds here, at least let me watch the show," Gu Qinghan chuckled. "You're just a clumsy idiot, Chen Feng," he added. "Gu, don't joke like that, I can hear everything," Chen Feng tried to object. His heart was broken. It felt like our world was a SSS-level quest. "I've never seen anyone more ruthless," the system was pushing. "Tomorrow is your last day, work harder or we'll take your reward." Chen Feng thought hard. He had no good ideas. His goal was close, but he'd only caught a slight cold. Fall in love in less than 2 days? Gu Qinghan was like a dense forest, defying any magic. Chen Feng, driven to the brink, suddenly glanced sideways at me. "Listen, student, can you step aside? I need to talk to Gu Qinghan." I nodded in agreement. "Wake me up later," I said to Gu Qinghan before walking away. Gu Qinghan's face turned icy. "Speak, esteemed student. I don't know how I offended you, but don't bother me anymore. Now get lost." Chen Feng was clearly in a panic. Chen Feng tried to block his way. "I've liked you since the first time we met. Give me a chance." Gu Qinghan's gaze dimmed. "I've had enough," Gu Qinghan said and turned away. Chen Feng, like a defeated warrior, swallowed the lump in his throat. "Look at me, I have a great figure and a beautiful face. Just give me a chance." Chen Feng looked pleadingly at the man standing before him. Gu Qinghan blushed slightly and looked up at Li Fanyu. He didn't even glance at Chen Feng as he passed by, his words completely unsettling. Everyone in the classroom stared at the door. Why hasn't Gu Qinghan returned yet? Nothing happened, I hope. I started to worry. I looked serious and confused. Suddenly I saw Gu Qinghan. He was paler than usual. I quickly jumped up from my seat. "Are you okay?" I asked. He looked sick. Gu Qinghan took my glass of water and whispered something. I waited for him to finish and looked at him with concern. He leaned his head weakly on my shoulder. "I was scared. It's all your fault." His voice sounded hurt. Gu Qinghan, usually so mature, rarely showed weakness. I felt guilty and silently stroked his head. "Sorry, I won't do it again." Gu Qinghan lightly poked my palm with his finger. "Sit down, try doing that again." I handed him a candy from my pocket. I looked around. He didn't want to talk, so I decided not to ask anymore. After school, I took a shower and changed into a white t-shirt. I knocked on Gu Qinghan's bedroom door, but there was no answer. I pushed the door and saw him sitting in front of the computer with headphones on. I knocked on his desk and asked what we were having for dinner today. Gu Qinghan took off his headphones and stretched, showing off his lazy, relaxed posture. I sat down next to him, feeling a little depressed. "Gu Qinghan, I sincerely sympathize with you today, but you don't have to poison me with your silence." He chuckled, grabbed my head, and gently patted it. "Poisoning you would just be a waste of food," he replied. Deep in my mind, I felt a strange, soft touch. Gu Qinghan's face and neck suddenly flushed. He rose with difficulty and began to descend the stairs. I suddenly remembered that he didn't like to wear extra clothes at home. After all, we knew each other too well. I followed him downstairs. I saw Gu Qinghan chopping vegetables in the kitchen and walked closer just to watch. Everything was as usual. Need help? I asked. Gu Qinghan silently threw the meat into the pressure cooker. Go rest, he said, nudging me. Don't get in the way. I complied and bent my legs, getting more comfortable. I settled down on the sofa and turned on the TV. Gu Qinghan immediately warned me not to spoil my appetite with snacks. Otherwise you won't be able to finish dinner. I prepared all this for you. I had nothing to say. Did I really look like I couldn't eat it all? After a while, the food was ready and I turned off the TV. There were 4 simple dishes on the table, all my favorites. I was pleasantly surprised and couldn't resist praising them. Gu Qinghan smiled contentedly. His eyes lit up with pride. He knew he was talented, and my jokes about my culinary skills being second only confirmed it. I'm first and the boss always shows up last. Wait, one day I'll show you something special, he said after the meal. We were sprawled out on the couch watching some long-winded drama series. I playfully kicked Gu Qinghan. Oh, come on, what did Chen Feng do wrong? His voice sounded somehow peculiar. I didn't even know what to answer. He became an unforgettable person for me. Sometimes I was overcome with anxiety. I watched him, trying to understand the cause of his nausea. In class, my first reaction was silence. I feared the worst. What if these readers actually heard him? I shouldn't have gone then. It was as if an invisible gap had formed on Gu Qinghan's forehead. He sighed, looking at me. Can you at least not laugh sometimes? I closed my eyes and nodded. He said it rather awkwardly. His sister's clothes scared me. What did I even mean by surprised? How can you look at him like that? Gu Qinghan pointed his finger in the direction where I had been standing just now. He took it himself. Why are you upset? Gu Qinghan frowned and said nothing. I was shocked when you watched that action movie. Gu Qinghan pinched me. I don't watch that kind of thing. What's so disgusting about it? He responded. He glared at me. You saw it. How can my eyes turn? I heard others gossiping. Men aren't selfish, you know. When I met you, I considered myself lucky. As I went to bed, I was still thinking about Chen Feng's face. I wanted to laugh. Most of the guys at our elite school are too proud. They have plenty of money to calm themselves down and please others. How is that possible? Does this mean the so-called storytellers shouldn't harm Gu Qinghan? After all, he's the main character in this world. Should I tell him they're attacking? I fell asleep with that thought in my mind. The next day, I got on my bike. I pushed Gu Qinghan forward. Gu Qinghan, you need to lose weight. He leaned his back against me. You're too skinny yourself. You should exercise. I'm not hungry. Don't cling to me. We fought like kids in elementary school, although we both loved such squabbles. I noticed that Chen Feng hadn't arrived yet. I took out my phone to check the time. I glanced at the feed, all Yimo's words. I don't want to offend my brother, but it's Yimo. Gu Qinghan stared at the screen with me for a while. I needed to go to the student council. I asked Shen Mo if he was back. Shen Mo is the student council president. The last few days seemed to reflect the overall situation at school. What events would be held? Gu Qinghan had been acting in his position for 2 days when he finished his student council duties. I left the classroom and turned left. I opened the door and walked in, hastily scribbling 3 words, high-class master. Filial piety. Qinghan is here. What do you want to do today? Gu Qinghan put on his apron. Master Gao Dian was becoming increasingly fond of this young man. At first I thought you were just joking. I didn't expect you to take it so seriously, Gu Qinghan said. Today I want to learn how to make pudding. Master Gao Dian laughed and took out his tools. There are very few guys like you these days. How did you manage to win the heart of the one you like? Gao Dian looked at Gu Qinghan. He met his gaze. I haven't conquered it yet, he replied. Are young people really that good-natured these days? I need to say something nice. I was young too, and I want to be his first love. I was almost fooled by that innocent face. So what did you do to get your way? Don't do anything behind my back. Eventually, everything hidden will come to light. I waited for his reaction, but he was once again misled by those who talk nonsense. Gu Qinghan stopped abruptly. His face darkened and his tone turned icy. He was always mine. If anyone tries to take him away, I will kill them. The master was clearly surprised. Gu Qinghan tapped his lips, looking at me. The word uncle had no hidden meaning for him, but a heavy silence hung in the air. After Gu Qinghan left, the pastry chef wiped the sweat from his brow and sighed with relief. Meanwhile, Gu Qinghan was already carrying the pudding to class. He caught a glimpse of me sitting on the desk and remembered what he had just said. His eyes darkened and he slowly raised his head. He smiled at me and slowly came closer, placing what I had prepared right on my table. I was quite surprised. I asked him where the pudding was, and he just looked at me meaningfully in response. The student will give it to me, but don't touch it. I told you it's mine since it's on my desk. He laughed and my hand was still on the table. I didn't want to continue this conversation. Because you are all mine, Gu Qinghan said without losing his coldness. Are you a bandit? As usual, his possessive look confused me a little, but I couldn't look away. Tender and unassuming, I am yours, and that means you can only be mine, he replied. I opened the package. If you're a bandit, will you rob me? Then you'll be my servant, washing my feet, I thought with a grin. Gu Qinghan seemed to have guessed my thoughts. Thank you, Lord Yan, for the reward. I am flattered, he replied ironically. You're welcome, little Han, I winked, looking around. Gu Qinghan played along. Well, how is it? Is the pudding the king sent you tasty? I finished the last bite. I looked at him seriously and replied, I am very pleased with the king. We both laughed, and it seemed as if my magical powers had awakened. Last night I just thought I wanted something sweet, and today you already brought it. Are you a mind reader? Gu Qinghan laughed. Are you going to tell me I'm a meteor? I thought for a second. It sounded logical. Gu Qinghan lowered his gaze. His voice sounded right next to my ear. You can tell me anything you want. I could smell his perfume on my breath. It felt like my heart stopped for a moment, and then it started beating wildly. I quickly pushed Gu Qinghan away. Get up from my desk. If you're going to talk nonsense, go away. I'm thirsty. I went to get some water, feeling Gu Qinghan's gaze follow me, quietly laughing at my flushed face. So, Fang Yuan, you have feelings for me too, right? And it's not the same feeling as seeing an old childhood friend. I returned with a glass of water. My heart calmed down. And pull yourself together, I told myself. It's just my brother from childhood. But what's happening to my pulse then? The ringing interrupted my thoughts. I returned to my seat. I opened the book and calmly began writing a note. Gu Qinghan looked at me sideways. Are you okay? I'm just kidding. I'm just thirsty, I replied, pointing to his textbook. It was English class now, and I was staring at the math textbook on my desk. I calmly copied the assignment. If Gu Qinghan knew how quickly I had a heart attack, he would definitely start laughing. The teacher entered the classroom and announced the news. To boost your energy, the school has organized a summer camp next week. I hope you enjoy it. The class buzzed with excitement, some happy, some worried. I remembered walking up the mountain, tired and sun-drenched, wearing clothes I had bought a couple of days earlier. I'll finally be able to rest and play. My classmates haven't mentioned Chen Feng in a long time, and I've forgotten about him myself. And Chen Feng was currently lying on the bed. His appearance changed beyond recognition. His eyelids drooped, his nose became snub, his skin darkened. The system asked, Master, are you sure you wish to continue? Chen Feng's face contorted with rage. Don't you understand? I no longer have that aura of popularity. How can I seduce the heroine now, being such a freak? The system coldly replied, If you don't do anything, you'll be considered a failure. You'll be killed. Chen Feng asked in despair, What should I do? The system prompted, Now you can act differently. Everyone will forget the past. Chen Feng, they will accept you again. Chen Feng desperately hoped that his face would recover. Sorry, Master, this is punishment for failing the quest. Your appearance can't be improved, so don't dwell on it. Have you forgotten what you were like before? You should have become a handsome man after completing the quest. Chen Feng lied to himself, recalling his former appearance. He'd been living in delusions for so long that even walking down the stairs was difficult. The mountain climb was in a week. I hope you can change the heroine's image in 5 days to fix at least something. There were 2 days left until the holidays. I packed my bag and headed home. Gu Qinghan walked alongside me, happily shouting into his phone, Good brother, Xilong sent a message. Today he invited us to dinner in honor of his birthday. We entered the cozy little house together. Xilong was holding his girlfriend, Shen Qingling, in his arms. There were several unfamiliar faces in the room, and I found a free seat. A voice rang out, Fang Yuan, very pleased to meet you. I am Xilong's girlfriend, Shen Qingling. I looked up and saw her. You have a very sweet smile. I saw you at school. They say you were Gu Qinghan's childhood sweetheart, Shen Qingling added, looking at me intently. It's weird, I don't usually remember guys, but for some reason I always remember you. It's really weird. I haven't felt like I was being paid this much attention in years. Before, no matter what I did at school, the teachers seemed to ignore me entirely. Even if I realized this on the first day, I would still keep asking myself about it over and over again on the second. I've been used to this feeling for many years. Maybe the system had convinced me that I was just a little bubble afraid to open my eyes, but then Gu Qinghan found my hand and squeezed it tightly. The warmth of his palm penetrated my skin. I knew it was his way of comforting me without saying anything in front of everyone else. "Why are you so silent? We were talking about the game, weren't we?" Everyone immediately perked up. Zilong took the cup. "Let's play truth or dare." I let go of Gu Qinghan's hand and calmly said that I was fine. Gu Qinghan was already thinking about his plan. Feeling thirsty, he took a sip of the drink. "I feel better already," Silan said, raising his hand and announcing the rules of the game. "The rule is simple. Whoever gets a king can make one wish." Gu Qinghan looked closely at the cards. "He got a king card and I got a 5, Gu Qinghan remarked casually. "Please write your name on my card," he asked. I was a little taken aback. What a strange request. Yes, Qinghan knew how to make the game much more interesting. Gu Qinghan glanced coldly at the others. There was only one wish. Everyone present was shocked. "What did our sister say?" I muttered, taking a pen and writing my name on his card. In subsequent rounds, they exchanged cards and played several more times. I was confused, my mood completely soured. "Goodbye, Jai Yuan," I said. Gu Qinghan and I were driving home. I hesitated for a few seconds. I asked him why he had to write my name on the card. Gu Qinghan's voice was clear. "Don't you know, I looked at your face for a few seconds while you were thinking." I slowly opened my eyes and grinned. I wasn't used to being ignored, and I handled it well today. My grades in Gu Qinghan were always somehow connected to this illness of mine. Teachers often praised only him, and I remember crying so much that day. Little Gu Qinghan then ran into the office, and the teacher began to talk about his pedagogical theories. On the first day, they promised to reward me, but the next day, they forgot. Later, Gu Qinghan started giving me all his rewards. He even replaced all the names in his works with mine. His face was so serious. From then on, I never asked others to notice me again. I stopped expecting others to remember me. It was a little chilly that May night. But my heart was warm. I looked at Gu Qinghan, who had put his arm around my neck. "Gu Qinghan, I want milk tea or a giant pudding." He refused. "No, you've already had a cup of cold water today." I was a little angry. Gu Qinghan said with a heavy sigh, "Your mom was right about you too. Be a good guy and listen to me." I warned him not to force me to remove him from my life. Gu Qinghan just laughed at my threat. "Do you think you can just leave?" I was grateful to him for that. "Were you really bitten by a dog as a child? No wonder you have such a bad temper now," I teased. Gu Qinghan raised me like kitchen. I thought I'd become more energetic, but he had such a gloomy look, as if the whole world had abandoned him. He just needed to be himself. I started preparing for the climb right at home, at night. This was the first year that such an ascent was carried out. The school administration placed great importance on this. Gu Qinghan took only a couple of bottles of water and some food. We climbed Longsleeve Mountain. They say there's a wishing tree at the top. The key is to hang your name and the name of your loved one on it. Then they could be together forever. Many students were intrigued by this. I stood next to Gu Qinghan. "If you can't climb up yourself, I'll lift you up." Gu Qinghan was full of energy. I smiled and said that I was just waiting for the moment to prick him. I forgot that he shouldn't be ashamed. Climbing the mountain. Some of my classmates were already exhausted and complained as they lay on the path. "When will this end?" The teacher clapped his hands. "Come on, students. Perseverance is the key to victory. Your best years are almost here." I too was sweating. Overwhelming thoughts overwhelmed me. I took off my jacket and sat down on a rock. It seemed I needed to find the words to be lifted up. Gu Qinghan settled on my shoulder and took a bottle of water out of his bag. He opened the lid and handed it to me. "Drink." I didn't know who exactly told me I couldn't handle it, but I stumbled and almost fell. "Sorry, my body is failing me, but my heart is full of fight." Gu Qinghan crouched down in front of me and wiped the sweat from my forehead. He shook his head and said, "You're stronger than most, just believe in yourself." I held my breath. "You're the best." Gu Qinghan gave me a long searching look. Of course, I looked at him with the most calm face I could muster. Gu Qinghan poked me in the forehead with his index finger. "Didn't you say you wanted to learn this? Don't pretend you don't care. If anyone sees this, they'll think I'm not as capable as the others," I muttered. Gu Qinghan, his brows furrowed, tugged at my hand. He pulled me closer with a slight smile. "What are you thinking? The worst that could happen is you'll just get confused." At that moment, I noticed Wen Ziuchi coming closer. I grabbed his neck tightly. At that moment, it wasn't me who was embarrassed. It was as if I didn't even exist for those around me. Gu Qinghan was furious. "Thin-skinned little brother, look," I said, realizing we were way behind. Although, as it turned out, the concept of behind didn't exist here. Since Gu Qinghan and I were trailing behind, a lot of time had passed and the others had already moved far ahead. Feeling strange, I pressed myself against his side and asked, Gu Qinghan, are you carrying me to training? Where did you suddenly get such strength? When I was a child, I couldn't take 2 steps without getting tired. Gu Qinghan's face was red and his head was covered in sweat. I'd never seen him like this before. I got scared and immediately jumped to the ground, trying to understand from his facial expression what was happening. Gu Qinghan, what's wrong? Why are you so red? I felt a pang of guilt. I should have known better than to let him carry me. Gu Qinghan silently took the water from my hands. Taking a sip, he gradually came to his senses. Let's go. I think the teacher will come to us himself. Gu Qinghan brushed the dust off his clothes. His face, as usual, became impassive. If you're feeling unwell, you should tell me right away, I added. I'll find a teacher myself, don't insist. A familiar voice suddenly sounded. Hello, class, the teacher sent me to get you. The others are already waiting on the slope. I saw a man in front of us. He met Gu Qinghan's gaze and it made me feel strangely uncomfortable. System. Are you sure Gu Qinghan doesn't remember anything about me? Of course, don't doubt our technology. A familiar conversation rang in my ears. I squinted at the guy in front of me. Chen Feng's laughter seemed cold. My name is Chen Feng, let me help you carry your bag. It was indeed him. That's why he changed. It means Gu Qinghan doesn't remember the old Chen Feng. I remembered the punishment meted out by the system. So Chen Feng should be punished now, Gu Qinghan replied politely but coldly. Thank you, Chen Feng's smile was flawless. What about that, classmate? Do you want me to help you? I held my book bag and frowned. Thanks, I can handle it myself. Okay, let's get going. I turned to the system. I don't seem to have the required resource. Yes, presenter, but I don't recommend using it. There will be side effects. I won't, unless I'm in dire straits. For Gu Qinghan's favor, I'm willing to do anything. Then I wish master success. I heard my heart pounding. I tugged hard at Gu Qinghan's arm. I felt uneasy. I wanted to tell him everything, but a voice echoed in my head. You can't say that. I shook my head, shaking off the thought. Gu Qinghan looked down at his clothes. I grabbed his sleeve and Gu Qinghan squeezed my palm tightly. I asked, what are you afraid of? I tried to tame my restless heart. Breathe, it's okay, I'm just a little tired. Let's go upstairs. I clearly had something to hide from him. He looked at my expression, his tone unchanging. It seemed this wind had been strange from the very beginning. What had it done to me? Gu Qinghan closed his eyes. In the darkness, looking into the wind, I muttered joyfully to myself, whatever this man is up to, I'll make him pay. System, is Gu Qinghan looking at me? Yes, sir. The system continued to watch him. A pleasant feeling of upliftment. Relationship metrics, one at 0%, another dropping to 30%, a third to 50%. The system looked at the satisfied owner. Should I tell him? Excellent news. It seems my method still works. This time I hope to succeed without any aids. The system remained silent this time. At the top of the mountain, my classmates were once again full of enthusiasm. Everyone was busy writing their names and the names of their loved ones on the tree. I didn't believe in such things. So I didn't write anything, I just opened the box. Gu Qinghan prepared this morning. What are you doing to me? Aren't you hungry? Gu Qinghan silently wrote down the name. I'll eat this later if you don't mind. I stepped aside, feeling a little strange. Looking around, I saw Chen Feng chatting with the others. Come back quickly. It's okay, it'll only take a few minutes, I told myself. Gu Qinghan's gaze fell on my face. I knew I'd be back soon. Gu Qinghan slowly approached the wishing tree. He pulled out a note. We both knew those words. As a child, he hadn't believed in such things, thinking only gods could read wishes, but now he felt like a god himself. He made a wish to the tree to be with me forever. Gu Qinghan hung up the note and walked away. Because I, this foolish boy, was still waiting for him, he turned around and saw Chen Feng. Have you come to hang up the talisman? I thought you didn't believe it. Gu Qinghan didn't plan to talk to him. What do you care about me, Gu? Why are you so stern? I just want to be your friend. He clearly didn't understand anything. He tried to get closer to clarify his feelings, but Gu Qinghan looked so self-sufficient and seductive that he seemed unattainable. After this short phrase, he walked towards me. Chen Feng, gritting his teeth, remained standing behind. The system activated the props. Suddenly, the wind picked up and I was overcome by a strange premonition. The time had come to act. An unnatural silence fell all around, as if time stood still. I stood there, frozen, holding the half-eaten apple in my hand. Panic gripped me. I couldn't move, my teeth clenched tightly around the apple. Could this be Chen Feng's doing? I reproached myself for leaving Gu Qinghan alone. All I had to do was turn away for a couple of minutes, and here it was. Chen Feng used his device, and I fell into darkness, losing consciousness. When I woke up, I found myself in a familiar room in the Gu family home. How did I end up here if I'd just been on top of the mountain? I tried to move to reach something, but my body wouldn't obey. I remained paralyzed. It was strange to realize that Gu Qinghan must have brought me here himself. I just wanted to play for a while, but suddenly I noticed my hands starting to move. The wind was buzzing in my head. What the hell is going on right now? The system explained. The body's owner repeats actions that repeatedly cause pain to Gu Qinghan. My task is to be the one to stop this cycle and alter his memories, relieving his suffering. But what have I done to my body? I had no idea what exactly was causing his pain. After all, this was Gu Qinghan's deeply personal experience. How much time do I have? I asked. 3 days, the system's cold voice snapped. If I don't find the source of the pain, I'll lose and Jiangning will die from the prop's side effects. Could it really be that serious? I hoped everything would be all right, but the system was adamant. I had broken the rules. I'd accidentally allowed Gu Qinghan to speak, and now I could hear snippets of conversation that confirmed my fears. If I'm not mistaken, Chen Feng has taken control of my body right now. I was trapped, locked in my own mind, unable to speak or move. I could only watch Chen Feng's actions. I feel like I'm about 8 years old here. Was I the cause of Gu Qinghan's suffering at that age? The door swung open with a bang. "Young master, it's time to eat," the nanny's voice rang out. I watched as my body obediently stood up and walked out of the room. I looked closely at what was happening. A woman of about 30 was standing in front of the door. She looked at me, or rather at Chen Feng in my body, with a joyful smile. "Our young master is so handsome. Come on, the mistress is already waiting," she cooed. I was shocked. I remembered that nanny very well. When I was a child, she was the only one who praised me, but later Aunt Gu warned her that she was dishonest. I hurried away, watching them disappear. 8-year-old Gu Qinghan was waiting for us. Seeing us, he grumbled discontentedly that we were taking an awfully long time. I wanted to answer him, to justify myself by saying that I had tried very hard. At first I wanted to eat, but then I remembered I was locked and voiceless in my own body. I missed him so much, but now I could only watch as Chen Feng approached the 8-year-old Gu Qinghan. He looked like a character from a fairy tale, a little princess. At such a young age, he didn't yet hide his emotions behind a mask of coldness. Chen Feng believed that since Gu Qinghan was still small, he was not that scary. "Qinghan, let's go eat." He reached for his hand. I covered my face with my hands, unable to bear to watch this farce. A memory of our difficult relationship surfaced. We fought every day. Gu Qinghan recoiled from Chen Feng, looking at him with bewilderment. "What did you call me just now?" Chen Feng asked in surprise. "Feng Yuan, you're so boring." Gu Qinghan tossed these words toward the bedroom and locked himself in. Aunt Nanny immediately knocked on Mrs. Gu's door. "Don't be angry, madam, don't spoil my appetite," she shouted. There was a loud noise outside the door, which made my insides clench with fear. What happened to Gu Qinghan? I was furious. Chen Feng clearly wasn't going to leave him alone. I asked the nanny what had happened and why Gu Qinghan was so angry. She simply squatted in front of me and said soothingly, "It's okay, it's just a whim. You can easily persuade her. After all, she only listens to you." Chen Feng didn't understand what he was doing wrong. It seemed that this very attitude of the nanny was the key to Gu Qinghan's pain. I needed to figure it out. "Gu Qinghan, open the door," Chen Feng shouted. "Sorry, I was wrong. Come out and have dinner," he continued to insist after a while. Gu Qinghan finally opened the door. I wasn't there. He was sitting at the table eating. "Even if you're angry, don't starve yourself. Learn from the young master," the nanny cooed as she cut up the meat for him. They placed a glass of water next to me. I looked at the glass, feeling my stomach growl with hunger. I touched my stomach. Chen Feng continued eating, and I wondered why the nanny was so helpful to Gu Qinghan when she had previously ignored me. My heart was breaking. "System, give me some kind of hint. I can't handle this. I'm not smart enough," I begged. I felt that Chen Feng had a clear position, but I myself had no idea how to correct the situation. "There's no such function," the system replied coldly. I was ready to collapse in despair, looking around. Gu Qinghan finished his meal, wiped his mouth, and jumping off his chair, silently headed upstairs. Chen Feng followed him. The nanny took a bite of her food and followed them. I turned around looking at her. She slowly cleared the dishes from the table, humming softly and looking suspiciously happy. The light and shadows on the ceiling danced across her face. I've seen this scene hundreds of times, but I just played the silent game while Chen Feng stood in front of Gu Qinghan. Don't be angry with me, we will get along well in the future. I will never do anything that you don't like, Chen Feng repeated, considering this young man simply handsome. I must have done something terrible in the past for Gu Qinghan to carry this pain within him for so many years. I need to connect with him, but right now he's looking at me with a completely blank expression. Suddenly he laughed and I froze. Okay, what will you call me, sister, in the future? Chen Feng, who controlled my body, asked, looking at his smile. My heart was pounding. It seemed like Gu Qinghan smiled at me for the first time. I was stunned, looking at this 8-year-old child, unable to move. I wanted to break free, give him a kick, make him realize what was happening, but I was just trapped in someone else's shell. Alas, I have no power over this body. I watched as Chen Feng, his face flushed, continued to call him sister. It made me furious. If I'm guilty, judge me, not my body, I screamed mentally, closing my eyes. I didn't want to see Gu Qinghan's smug face. There was no longer a smile in his eyes. It gave way to a shadow, reflecting the coldness I'd seen in him as an adult. Chen Feng was clearly holding something back. Goosebumps ran down my spine. Chen Feng had made me shout it out, but his appearance was terrifying. While I was trembling, Gu Qinghan suddenly smiled at me. Then let's get along in the future, he said. Chen Feng was delighted and I broke out in a cold sweat. I tried to convince myself it was just a dream, just a memory. That night, Chen Feng slept peacefully in the room and I continued to watch what was happening. I looked at the reflection, waiting for the inevitable. There was a sharp sound. Kata, the door opened. In the light, I saw the nanny standing very close. The terrible truth emerged. When we were 8, Gu Qinghan and I were sold to human traffickers, and it was our nanny who did it. She wasn't dishonest, she was a criminal. Soon, Gu Qinghan and I were bundled into a car. The driver turned out to be a hefty man with a thick beard. He couldn't hide his joy. Good jobs, the woman who comes home will be very happy. The nanny's voice became cold and calculating. She hurried us, let us leave quickly before they wake up. What are you afraid of? You gave them sleeping pills, didn't you? The bearded man grumbled. The nanny merely taunted him about the handsome prize a boy from the Gu family could fetch. This guy is cute, he will pay well, she added. I realized that this is where the destruction of my family began. I saw Gu Qinghan sleeping next to me and didn't know how to save him. Maybe it's just a fantasy, but even in my memories, I didn't want him to go through such torment. We were locked in a dark, dirty room. In the morning, Chen Feng rubbed his eyes, looking around. The stench in the old house almost made me sick. I pinched my nose and demanded an explanation from the system. What's going on? Where are we? The system replied coldly, I don't know what events are coming. Keep an eye on Gu Qinghan. Chen Feng looked back and saw Gu Qinghan leaning against the wall. I rushed towards him, but he recoiled, avoiding contact. He just quietly asked, Are you okay? Where are we and what's going on? Knowing his cleanliness, I was amazed that he hadn't fainted yet in this stinking garbage dump. Gu Qinghan stood up and walked to the door. A man entered the room and growled, Be careful, I'll wash you off. Gu Qinghan replied that it smelled too bad in here. Chen Feng tried to switch places with him, but the man only laughed. You are not from the Gu clan, don't act like princes, otherwise you will regret it, he threatened. Gu Qinghan didn't want any trouble for us, but he knew that without changes we were finished. He held the shard of glass to his neck, his gaze cold and sharp as a sword, his determination clear. The man was frightened. I'll change everything, I'll just transfer you. Even as a child, Gu Qinghan was able to break the will of this criminal. I watched this, realizing that the situation had temporarily stabilized in Gu Qinghan's favor. We were transferred to another room. It was cluttered, but at least it didn't stink as much. The man was unhappy with the change of location and demanded that the glass be returned. Gu Qinghan threw a shard at his feet. Get lost. He was furious, but afraid of damaging the goods he wanted to sell at a profit. He screamed as he locked the door, and Chen Feng seemed to be completely losing touch with reality. Sister Qinghan, what should we do? It was my voice again, and I felt disgusted to hear it. I asked the system, can you call for reinforcements? It told me to stop dreaming. Now it became clear, this body had once committed treason, leaving Gu Qinghan in trouble. A common plot for dramas is the heroine's childhood, filled with pain. Please, system, help me change this. What novels had Chen Feng read before? I didn't care. But when I opened the door, I realized everything was not going as I remembered. Something had changed. Gu Qinghen ignored me. She simply lay down on the bed in silence. Chen Feng assumed she was tired and fell silent as well. It took a while before the silence was broken. The door swung open. The bearded driver and the thin man who had been following us entered the room. The driver grabbed Gu Qinghen by the collar and said mockingly, "You're too noisy for such a tiny thing. Be obedient or I won't hesitate to cut your profits." The skinny accomplice dropped the bag on the floor. Chen Feng, who had gone out earlier, came back and started asking questions. "Are you okay?" he asked. Gu Qinghen simply replied confidently, "Don't worry, we'll get out." She looked at me with irony. Chen Feng, who controlled my body, didn't understand what was happening and was confused. I didn't know how we would escape, but I believed that Gu Qinghen would definitely find a way to get out of this trap. "I'm sorry I'm so useless," I whispered to myself, "but you're so strong, you'll save me, right?" Gu Qinghen's gaze searched the room. I observed it through her memories. However, Gu Qinghen was wrong. Until the night, there was no sound from outside and no help came. She slowly stood up and began to push the heavy cabinet against the wall. Chen Feng stood there, perplexed. There was a passage behind the closet. She called me in a quiet whisper. I didn't understand what she was planning, but Gu Qinghen didn't waste time explaining. It turned out that there was a huge hole hidden behind the cabinet. This loophole had been here for 8 years already. I was shocked to the core. "You're a real good girl," I admired, and she only said briefly, "Go first." Chen Feng's expression was unwavering. "How can I leave first? We have to stick together," I protested and called her to follow me. Perhaps in those old memories I really did ask this body to escape first, and Gu Qinghen was angry with me afterwards. Judging from the books I'd read, that's exactly how the situation looked, and the realization made my heart clench. "What are you doing? Love, self-sacrifice, it's all out of place." Gu Qinghen raged, but I didn't listen. I was shocked to realize that it was I who had persuaded her to leave. It seems I've returned to the past. Back then, at 8 years old, I found this passage but was too weak to navigate it. The roads were bumpy, hills everywhere. I fell over and over again, and Gu Qinghen, so fragile, barely hung on my back. She begged me to leave her, to go first, claiming she'd sent a message to her mother and that help would arrive soon. I held her, unwilling to let go. I stubbornly moved forward, knowing that once the message was sent, I had no right to leave her alone. Gu Qinghen tried to convince me. "I'm not lying, I really did send the message. Go away or we'll both die." "I know you're lying," I thought, almost screaming. Gu Qinghen grabbed my neck tightly, unwilling to let go. "Just leave when you put me down," she said, and I just laughed bitterly. But her embrace was so tight that I felt moisture on my neck. The mud thickened around us and it started to rain. I felt like I could see the one who had put us through this nightmare. In my memories, Chen Feng loudly swore that he would not leave her under any circumstances. "Sister Qinghen, I won't abandon you," I repeated, and our lips touched each other. There was something terrifying about it, like cold poison. I found refuge, and that feeling stayed with me forever. Gradually, the image of 8-year-old Gu Qinghen began to fade, dissolving into time. "Owner, beware, as he grows older he changes," the system warned. "Warning, you've made a mistake. Gu Qinghen has been filled with darkness. The owner is in mortal danger." Chen Feng panicked. "What should I do? Save me," Chen Feng cried in fear, but the system was adamant. "Do whatever you want, I won't help." I looked at Gu Qinghen and was afraid to approach. Now it seemed frighteningly dark and dangerous. A cold, fighting spirit, dark shadows in his eyes. I shook my head, not recognizing him. This wasn't my Gu Qinghen. He was kind, awkward, and shy. This new image frightened me, making me retreat. He was covered in blood. I couldn't breathe looking at this sight. A severe pain in my neck. He grabbed me with his hand with such force that it seemed he was ready to crush me. "My God, come to your senses. Come back," I wanted to scream. Did he really understand everything? Chen Feng shuddered. I looked away, unable to speak anymore, only barely moving my fingers. Surprise filled me when I lifted his face. He smiled weakly. The only thing I could utter was, "Han Han." He squeezed my hand and released my fingers. He pulled me into a tight hug, and I felt the wetness on my skin again. "I laughed and you cried, little girl," I thought, and slowly closed my eyes. I took a bite of the apple and involuntarily touched my chin. Feeling a slight tingling sensation in that place, I glanced at Chen Feng, who was in the next room. He looked extremely agitated, and I felt a sense of foreboding inside me. He guessed it wasn't me, but Gu Qinghen. Why did she take so long in the restroom? Gu Qinghen stared thoughtfully at the tree in front of her. Colorful paper hung from the branches. A Apparently, she just had a nightmare, one so realistic and terrifying that the memory of it still left her feeling uneasy. Gu Qinghan quickly ran up to me, grabbed my hand, and hugged me tightly. I almost choked on a piece of apple from such surprise. "What are you doing?" I asked. "You haven't even washed your hands, have you? Get away from me." Gu Qinghan didn't let go, continuing to stroke my back. She knew I had a wound there, the one she had left. I turned around to check my clothes. "Pretend you don't know anything. How did you even end up in the bathroom? This is all so weird," I said, and Gu Qinghan, in an excellent mood, clapped me on the shoulder. "I just dreamed that you called me Sister Qinghan, and it scared me to death," she admitted, covering her face with her hands. "That scares me too. I'll only call you sister in my next life. What are you even going to call me in the future?" I asked. "I haven't thought about it yet." "Little sister," Gu Qinghan laughed, covering her mouth with her hand. "I know, my good brother." I reacted to her words with irony, hiding my irritation. Having collected our things and zipped up the bag, we began to descend the mountain together. The teacher had already started to call out the people when Gu Qinghan and I approached the others. I noticed that Chen Feng looked scared when he looked at Gu Qinghan. Chen Feng touched his neck as he looked at the girl, and I realized that my own neck was starting to hurt. "You know the leader," a voice said. "Your mission has failed. You only have a few hours to live." "I know, and I'm very touched by this fact," I replied, remembering the journey from an ordinary guy. I became someone everyone adored, but in the process, I gradually began to lose myself. Summer break arrived. After Chen Feng disappeared, the system remained silent until Gu Qinghan's birthday. I took the snow cake from her, sat down on the sofa, and waited for my friends. Soon, without further ado, Shen Mo, Su Wanru, and Zai Long knocked on the door. As soon as I opened the door, Shen Mo looked at me and immediately fell to the floor. I got scared and hurried to rush to his aid. "Are you saying that I am now reborn?" I asked. "That's right, Master Su," came the reply, and my hand froze. "Again, system, please tell me what to do." "Master Su, the situation is this. Our system has determined that Gu Qinghan is the cause of your reincarnation. Raise her affinity to 20% within 10 days, otherwise you will return to your past self and continue working as a waiter." Shen Mo listened to this with his eyes and mouth wide open. "The money I received when I was 18. Because my family was poor, people looked down on me and mocked me, and only Gu Qinghan stood up for me and spoke up first. We drove out those who bullied us, and later, thanks to the student council, we began to get to know each other better. I knew Gu Qinghan's secrets. She had always loved her childhood friend, with whom she had been bound her entire life, and their feelings had been mutual for many years. This time, her girlfriend was Su Wanru. She came to celebrate Gu Qinghan's birthday, and I was completely confused. This time, everything felt different. Time stretched out, and the previous resolve was gone. I stole a glance at Gu Qinghan. She must be too complicated to deal with. There was no system in sight. Entering the house, I headed for the refrigerator. After buying some ice cream, I decided to treat them to some sweet potatoes. Gu Qinghan's mouth dropped open in surprise. "Why didn't I get any? I'm not angry," she said. "Are you coming soon? It looks like you're just looking for an excuse to blame me." Gu Qinghan looked at me carefully. "You've been teasing me for too long. Look what I said. After all, I'm a girl. Even your dogs don't talk like you. It's my birthday." Gu Qinghan reminded me that my expression was not at all appropriate. "Your master has forgiven me a lot. It all started with that very gift." In the morning, during breakfast, Gu Qinghan and I received a package, car keys and high-heeled shoes. I finished my porridge and asked who could have sent such a gift. Who else could have such a mother and brother, I asked myself. Gu Qinghan suddenly put something aside and asked me curiously, "What about my gifts? You didn't come empty-handed, did you? You should look up." "It's still early in the day, and we haven't had any birthday cake yet," I replied as Gu Qinghan pulled me up to the second floor. I remembered that the gift was indeed in my drawer, and I took out a small box. The box was tiny, tied with a bow-shaped ribbon. Gu Qinghan carefully untied the knot. She tore open the package and opened the lid. Inside was a note that read, "Wish Talisman." I watched her reaction closely, but she gave no indication of her emotions. I felt awkward and started stammering, "Sorry, I don't even know what to give you. This is the only idea that came to mind. Consider it valid only today, on your birthday. Today you just make a wish and I will do my best to make it come true," I added, and Gu Qinghan laughed. "So I can make you do anything? Okay, I'll make a wish." "You have no right to refuse me today," she declared. I felt my will weaken, but I was glad she accepted my gift. Feeling relieved, I decided it was time for us to return to the others. While I was saying something, she interrupted me, complaining, "It's my birthday and I'm already full." The August heat wasn't conducive to going for walks, so we stayed home, turned on the air conditioning, and decided to play. After a few games, I really wanted the double-foamed milk they sold at the school gates. We agreed, the loser gets to go shopping. "I don't want to go out, it's so hot, why did I lose?" she complained. I suggested we get even with each other by playing another 300 rounds. I took out the bags of treats and began to eat with pleasure. Zilong handed the second portion to Shenmo. Shenmo silently took the treat and looked at Gu Qinghan. "Qinghan, do you want to eat? I haven't opened my bowl yet." Gu Qinghan nudged me lightly with her foot. I didn't catch Shenmo's hint and replied, "No need, I'll just eat a little." Finally, it dawned on me what she wanted. I started feeding Gu Qinghan, grumbling to myself that she was being fussy over such a small thing that wasn't so easy to get. In the end, half the treat ended up in her stomach. Gu Qinghan opened her mouth, looking tired, but now she seemed quite satisfied. "Watch what you say," she remarked. "Okay, Miss Gu, what else would you like? Let me feed you." I forced a forced smile, silently hoping she would soon eat herself to death. No, of course, it was just a flash of anger. Gu Qinghan seemed oblivious to my irritation and merely laughed. Zilong decided to joke, noticing that the atmosphere had become somewhat dull. He turned to Gu Qinghan. "Qinghan, have you always been like this since you were 18? How boring." She wasn't offended, on the contrary, she found it amusing. Then I whispered to her, "I hope you won't disturb Fang Yuan at this moment. Let's play a game instead." Zilong suggested using punishment cards and an empty glass Coke bottle as props. Whoever the bottle pointed at would carry out the task. Gu Qinghan lazily agreed. "It's boring, but let's see if the others agree," she said. It was impossible to refuse, so I said resignedly, "Okay, go ahead, I'll spin it." The bottle scraped against the table. She froze, pointing straight at Su Wanru. Su Wanru smiled at Gu Qinghan. Then she asked Zilong, "Help me draw a card, come on, come on." "Let me give you the hardest one before Zilong pushes you to the edge," I said. We looked at the card in her hand. "Kiss the guy sitting next to you." I stared at Su Wanru. I suddenly liked this game. Su Wanru seemed to be crazy about Gu Qinghan. Su Wanru looked at me with sparkling eyes. "Come on, sisters, I helped you." Gu Qinghan turned her gaze to me. I sat there, my eyes wide open, not even blinking. Gu Qinghan looked gorgeous, waiting for a kiss. "Turn around, Fang Yuan, you're so nosy." Gu Qinghan pinched my side. I didn't hear anything, but the distinct sound of a kiss reached my ears. In anger, I opened my palm, not knowing what to do with myself. I rubbed my face, trying to hide my embarrassment. "This is too much, Gu Qinghan, can't you see what you're doing?" I looked into her eyes, but all I saw was her flushed cheek. I didn't immediately understand what was going on, and when I did, I ran into the bathroom like a bullet with a burning face. I drank a glass of cold water in one gulp. "Do you think I was that scared?" Su Wanru muttered as she watched Gu Qinghan run after me in a panic. I also went into the toilet, and Shen Mo, noticing this, understood everything. "I know you've been his childhood sweetheart," he said, approaching me. "Come closer. You and Gu Qinghan have a wonderful relationship. I'm even jealous," he said, and I just nodded. Shen Mo looked a little awkward, and his attempt at a serious face seemed unnatural. "You know, I dreamed of a love like that too. I'm a serious person, and if I find myself in trouble, I can protect myself, but I haven't been as lucky in life as you." "I'm a sister," I muttered and silently walked away from the sofa. What did this person really feel? It's strange, but after I linked myself to the system, I kept repeating to myself, "Don't talk about it." I felt ashamed. I'd never thought about Gu Qinghan so much before. Meanwhile, she went to wash up. She looked at her reflection in the mirror, and her heart was ready to jump out of her chest. Tenderness shone in her eyes, but her ears burned with embarrassment. She went out onto the balcony to catch her breath. The fresh air calmed her down a little, and Su Wanju followed her out onto the balcony. She walked up to Gu Qinghan. "Really?" she asked. "Aren't you going to tell him directly?" Gu Qinghan closed her eyes tightly. She feared that Fang Yuan wouldn't reciprocate her feelings and that their relationship would change forever. Su Wanru, herself pale with worry, only smiled. Gu Qinghan seemed to be unable to think of anything else, and this created a strange tension between us. "By the way," Su Wanru added, "didn't I ask you to write him a love letter?" "And how do you like it?" Gu Qinghan stood up from her seat. "I wrote, but it seems he never saw it. You're not the type to hide your feelings for long. If you don't confess, you'll lose him sooner or later. What are you even talking about?" I heard the voice of the man I love and went out onto the balcony. Su Wanru smiled when she saw me. You heard right, Fang. Qinghan and I were just discussing the man she loves. Gu Qinghan, do you have a lover? Who is it? Do I know him? What does he look like? I walked over and stroked her head. Have I not made myself clear enough? She muttered. You're a naughty girl. How did you even manage to find a boyfriend? I couldn't help but tease her, knowing it could hurt her. Shenmo watched us silently. After we finished the birthday cake, it was time to go our separate ways. Before leaving, Shenmo took my hand as if we were old friends. Fang, you're a great guy. We'll hang out more often. And you, aren't you planning on making a move on Gu Qinghan? Why are you always following me? Gu Qinghan was acting strange. When had he gotten so close to her? I felt like this guy was slippery and I wanted to stay away from him. Now I was grateful to my system for keeping me grounded in reality. Shenmo gave me a final smile. It was nice to know that my attention to detail had increased, even though I still didn't know how to say no to others. Don't you know that I'm not good at saying no? Gu Qinghan suddenly asked. Then why did you refuse me? I looked at her reproachfully. You don't know this, and when did I ever refuse you? Today I'm trying my best for you. I didn't even look at the pictures of you kissing. She froze. You just want to see a reaction. I felt awkward. I don't want to see other people's reactions to this kiss, but yours. Gu Qinghan laughed quietly. Her smile made my insides turn over, and I felt a strange excitement. Of course, I knew I couldn't hide from her gaze. I haven't even had time to comprehend the meaning of her words yet. Gu Qinghan had already grabbed my waist and pulled me towards her. I automatically put my hands on her neck. Deep down, I wanted to retreat. Gu Qinghan stared at me. Aren't you curious? You'll find out when I try it. Are you crazy? Gu Qinghan, we're brothers. This is wrong. The atmosphere was tense. My head was in chaos. I couldn't remember what exactly had led to this scene, but Gu Qinghan was whispering in my ear like a temptress. It's my birthday. Say what you want, but you have to understand, are we really just brothers? Kiss me and you'll understand. I'm beautiful and this is our first kiss. You have nothing to lose. I'm just curious if I can please you. I looked at her, admitting that she truly was beautiful. I don't know if it was witchcraft or just a desire to fulfill her request, but I smiled softly. I just ate a milk-flavored candy and decided to try it out. I closed my eyes and kissed her. The first thing I felt was tenderness. Her lips turned out to be incredibly soft. It lasted less than a second, but I managed to lightly touch her lips. Novels are lies, Gu Qinghan whispered. There is no sincerity in them. What do you feel? I asked quietly. Gu Qinghan froze like a moth caught in a trap. I shook my head. Maybe there wasn't enough time. This time let me take the initiative, she said. I was shocked, and before I could say anything, she silenced me. This kiss was completely different. She touched my lips tenderly, gently penetrating and embracing me. My heart pounded as if it was about to burst out of my chest. Gu Qinghan seemed completely absorbed in the moment. It turned out that Fang Yuan had just tasted that very sweet taste of milk. Time seemed to stand still. Gu Qinghan didn't want to let me go, holding my face tightly. I couldn't think of anything anymore. I pulled away in confusion and wiped my lips. Where did she learn to kiss so well? Gu Qinghan laughed softly. Looking at her smile, I didn't understand what was happening to me. My heart was pounding wildly and I hurried to my room. Falling onto the bed, I closed my eyes, trying to come to my senses. I sat there trying to catch my breath, my heart pounding as if it was about to burst out of my chest. The image froze in my head. How could I have kissed Gu Qinghan? It's all her fault. She seduced me, I told myself, trying to calm down. This is Gu Qinghan, my sister. How much longer can I keep trying to convince myself? Eventually, I fell asleep, and when I woke up the next morning, the first thing I saw was her. I was confused and instinctively touched my lips. Why have you been looking at me like that since this morning? I tried to pretend that yesterday's events had nothing to do with me. A strange, tense silence fell over the room. At breakfast, Gu Qinghan could chatter about all sorts of nonsense, but I remained silent. I didn't want to blush and be the first to start this conversation. How did you sleep? Gu Qinghan put her cup on the table and stared at me. It's fine, I replied, although inside I was seething with anxiety and regret. Honestly, have you ever thought about dating? I don't understand what you're talking about. Why did she suddenly change the subject so abruptly? Of course, I thought about it. When you're young, of course, you want a relationship. But I didn't want a girl who would have to prove who I was every day and explain basic things to her. Gu Qinghan propped her head up with her hand. So what are your requirements for a girl? I bent my finger thinking. First of all, she must be kind to me, and of course, beautiful and kind. You'll remember that, right? I suddenly became very interested in hearing her criteria. What are your ideal guys? I asked, looking her straight in the eyes. Fools have luck, she replied. I nodded, thinking to myself, if I'm so smart, maybe I shouldn't complain about being alone. Gu Qinghan picked up her phone and quickly sent something to Su Wanru. She said we were going to a bar that evening to unwind as she was in a bad mood. I was surprised, I'd never been there before. Really? Okay, I'll just change, I replied. Gu Qinghan looked at me, her mouth slightly open in surprise. What are you looking at? I'm unhappy, we've been together for so many years and you want me to cry. I casually began to change, trying to hide my excitement. Looking in the mirror, I realized something was missing, and then I remembered the gift she gave me for my birthday last year. It was a bottle of men's perfume. She said it was supposed to help me attract attention. I didn't want to offend her, so I used it. Well, finally, what took you so long? She looked at me, noticing the bottle in my hands. I sprayed myself with perfume and suddenly froze at the door, feeling my face flush. What could she be thinking? Did you read the note in the perfume box? She asked, fiddling with her bow tie, clearly nervous. I turned around slowly. I wrote something like a letter. I read it. Any problems? Gu Qinghan adjusted the knot around her neck. She looked tense, strands of hair falling into her eyes. You don't want to tell me anything. It was just a letter, an expression of feelings. Gu Qinghan's eyes clouded over, her voice trembling slightly. How happy she was yesterday and how depressed today. Apparently, Fang Yuan completely misunderstood her feelings. She always treated me like a brother. I was shocked to see her eyes turn red. What's wrong? Are you crying? Gu Qinghan took a deep breath. She clenched her fists until her knuckles turned white. A battle raged in her mind. Should she admit that she loved me and didn't want to be just my sister, or should she remain silent so as not to ruin our brotherhood? Little voices in her mind argued, but eventually she gave in to her emotions. I looked at her, very nervous. Gu Qinghan, are you okay? Why are you bleeding? She touched her face, not noticing that her nose was bleeding from the strain. The smell of blood was unpleasant. It's nothing, she said, hiding her face in her lap. Then she said quietly but firmly, are you that shy? You can't even admit that you like me. After this struggle, we finally decided to go. When we arrived at the bar, Shen Mo and Su Wanru were already there. Su Wanru ordered 2 glasses of wine. She handed one to Gu Qinghan. Drink it, otherwise she's afraid of you. Gu Qinghan patted me on the shoulder and added. Su Wanru looked worried. Just have a drink and hug him, it's so exciting. I don't know what will happen after the wedding, I thought, glancing at Shen Mo next to me. After his rebirth, he looked completely lost. Shen Mo was afraid he'd wake up to the day he'd been a waiter. He planned to break up with Su Wanru that evening. And he wanted to resolve the situation in the square as quickly as possible. Listening to Su Wanru, I could feel her heart pounding. Why does everything I hear seem wrong? Shen Mo clapped me on the shoulder. Brother, don't be angry, but I think Gu Qinghan is too good for the guys around her. I completely lost my mind when I realized this. How can I deal with this? Shen Mo clenched his fists in anger. But his gaze was hazy. Look how many boys at school are pining for her, and she's indifferent. If it weren't for her face, who would even notice? My smile faded, replaced by a serious expression. Are you okay? He didn't force others to like him, and when we were at school, you yourself said you only liked him because of his face. Why couldn't I refuse her? You don't understand Gu Qinghan at all. Why are you talking about her like that? Shen Mo clearly hadn't expected such a harsh reaction from me. Don't be angry, he tried to smooth things over. I heard what the others were saying too. What's going on anyway? Everything was fine, but why was Shen Mo so fixated on Gu Qinghan just because of her looks? I told you, this is for you. I just shook my head, listening to his lectures and carefully observed his state. I don't think you're any better than them, Shen Mo forced a forced smile. What are you talking about? I don't like Gu Qinghan. As expected, he understood everything. There were only rich people around us and only Gu Qinghan seemed special. I didn't want to stay in this bar any longer. I said what I thought. Shen Mo clenched his fists and the system echoed in my head again. I only had a few days left. 7 days, master, you haven't made any progress yet. I advise you to speed up. You don't want to go back to the life where you were an ordinary waiter, do you? I ended the conversation and silently shook my head. I thought Shen Mo was a bad role model and the system itself was a bit odd. Meanwhile, Su Wanru handed Gu Qinghan a glass of wine. What's wrong with you today? Upset that your wish didn't come true? Gu Qinghan reflected on my mood swings over the past 2 days. I took a sip and muttered, irritating. This squarehead, Shen Mo, clearly didn't understand something or was just pretending. I sat next to Gu Qinghan, feeling out of place. Despite Gu Qinghan's displeased expression, I noticed she was also displeased about something. She glanced at me sideways. She frowned. Who asked you to do this? I tried to dodge her hand. It's okay, Su Wanru replied after drinking several glasses. She was a little irritated, but Gu Qinghan flared up. Why are you acting like a child? Who would dare bully my brother Fang Yuan? Gu Qinghan turned around and pointed angrily at Su Wanru. Tell me clearly, whose is she? Shenmo intervened, grabbing Gu Qinghan's wrists. Does it hurt? Does it hurt? Is it yours? Not enough. Su Wanru just laughed. When she laughed, Gu Qinghan looked at me. How happy was she? I was so upset I couldn't even be angry. I was thinking about this, but Shenmo continued to irritate me, especially with his comments about Gu Qinghan. At that moment, I became interested in the blue glass of wine in front of me. What kind of wine are you drinking? Gu Qinghan looked at me, squinting slightly. I took a sip without letting go of her hand. Suddenly, I frowned. This wasn't what I expected. Gu Qinghan looked at the rim of the cup where my mark had remained. She turned the cup over, never taking her eyes off me. She took a sip and licked her lips as if to say, "This is my food." Su Wanru watched this provocative act with amazement. Her face expressed complete incomprehension. The group, already quite drunk, began to disperse closer to midnight. I entered the password to the apartment, but as soon as we entered, Gu Qinghan grabbed my wrist. She pulled me toward the sofa, and I raised my head to object. Gu Qinghan, are you crazy? Don't be so foolish, it's too late, go wash your face. A drop of water fell on my hand. She was crying. I was afraid to confess my feelings. Gu Qinghan was angry with me. Where was her usual composure? I wiped the tears from her face, trying to speak softly. I'm not angry, you're just really tired, it's time to rest, okay? She patted my hand gently. Then she buried her head in my shoulder. I felt cold, even though she pressed herself tightly against me. I felt our hearts beating. I wanted to pull away, but in the end I just stroked her head. Gu Qinghan, behave well, don't be angry. She hugged me even tighter. I don't know how long I tried to calm her down before I heard a weak, embarrassed voice. I laughed, realizing she was simply drunk. It reminded me of our childhood. At that moment, she almost completely bought me. Once, when I was injured and spent a long time in the hospital, Gu Qinghan started acting very clingy after I returned home. Sometimes I even slept in her room. The next morning, I woke up and found that we were sleeping next to each other, and she was hugging me like a princess. Fearing that she would fall out of bed while drunk, I spread a lot of pillows on the floor. I struggled to get up to bed and didn't wake up until noon the next day. As I was going downstairs and not hearing any sound, I decided to go up and knock on her door. There was no answer, so I had to go in. Gu Qinghan, are you okay? I patted her on the shoulder, and she frowned in her sleep. A strange heat emanated from her, and my head began to hurt. I touched my forehead. She was burning. I took out the thermometer, 37.4, not critical, but I still got worried. Gu Qinghan, take off your shirt, I'll dry you off with a towel. She looked at me and blushed. I said this in a calm tone and went to get some water. While I was preparing the basin, she quietly took off her t-shirt. I began to carefully wipe her skin with a damp towel. I slowly stood up, not even suspecting that there was some sharp object hidden under her body. I realized what I'd just seen, and my face instantly flushed. I didn't dare look at her again. Handing the towel to Gu Qinghan, I decided to let her handle the rest of the process herself. Gu Qinghan seemed to be dissatisfied with my aloofness, as if she were jealous of herself. You don't care about me at all, she muttered. I tried to explain why I was acting so reserved. Of course I care, but we are adults, it's awkward, I said, turning away to the door so as not to see her embarrassment. Did you just realize this now? She stared at my back. Wipe yourself off and I'll turn away for now. I touched her cheek, checking to see if the fever had gone down. So, is it better? The medicine first, Gu Qinghan insisted, looking at me intently. I don't want to drink it, she whined, although she herself didn't see how sick she looked. Knowing her aversion to pills, I decided to take the initiative. I got out some fever reducer. I gently opened her mouth to give her the medicine and handed her a glass of water. Gu Qinghan's eyes widened in surprise. She swallowed the pill carefully, and I watched her throat tighten. I touched her forehead with my hand. Well, does it feel better? Try getting up. She opened her mouth to answer. The medicine was still on my tongue, so I handed her more water. Come on, one more sip. She obediently opened her mouth. She finally swallowed it all, and I couldn't help but praise her, then added a candy to smooth out the unpleasant taste. This is your reward. Her eyes, full of sugar, showed gratitude. She didn't let me go, and I jokingly started to lightly beat her. If you tell this at school, no one will believe that a cold goddess could act like this, she muttered under her breath. I didn't care what others thought, all that mattered to me was that she was here. Okay, calm down. Go to sleep now, I'll call you for dinner, I said and went to the kitchen, deciding to cook her some porridge since she wasn't feeling well. I put the rice cooker down and then went back upstairs to Gu Qinghan. She was already asleep, her eyes closed. I quietly left, closing the door tightly, and sat down on the sofa. While scrolling through the news on my phone, I saw a message from friends who were planning to come over to my house to watch horror movies. I told them that Gu Qinghan had a cold. I didn't expect them to be so persistent in offering to come anyway. No, she needs rest, I snapped, although I suspected that they just wanted to make a show out of my care for her. After making the porridge, I returned to the room. She hadn't woken up yet, so I quietly called out, Han, it's time to get up. We need to eat before bed. She opened her eyes, still half asleep. Seeing me, she sat up slowly. Does your head still hurt? I asked. No, Gu Qinghan replied quietly. I started feeding her porridge with a spoon. At that moment, I heard a noise behind me. Zilong and Su Wanru stood at the door, watching this scene with surprise. I don't know how long they were peeking, but Shen Mo wasn't among them. I tried to maintain a calm expression. Come in, what are you standing there for? Zilong quickly tried to hide his awkwardness by picking up some fruit from the floor. I didn't expect Gu Qinghan to get so sick, he added, to which Su Wanru chuckled. Gu Qinghan's expression turned gloomy. It seemed like her gaze was about to burn a hole through them. I couldn't help but laugh at this scene. Come on, what's the big deal? I tried to lighten the mood, and Gu Qinghan seemed to soften a bit. They're just kids, don't pay attention to them, I added, seeing that Su Wanru was deliberately trying to offend her. While they were chatting, I took the fruits they brought. I washed the grapes in the kitchen, leaving Gu Qinghan alone in the room. When I returned, I put a grape in her mouth. When I started asking her questions, she looked at me with restraint. I felt uneasy, put my things aside, and assumed a serious expression. What happened? Did someone upset you? I immediately moved closer. She pointed at me. Me, what did I do? I started to apologize, but Gu Qinghan suddenly smiled. The corner of her mouth was stained with grape juice. What a fool I was to have worked myself up so much. I finally sighed with relief and laughed. Gu Qinghan, you are really difficult. I took the thermometer. Let's take your temperature again, and then go down and eat. Her temperature was normal. Gu Qinghan began to get out of bed. I want to take a shower and you go downstairs, the others are there. I don't want to walk around sweaty, she said, looking better. Okay, just for a little while, I reminded her. Her cold seemed to be receding and my usual energy had returned. Gu Qinghan looked at me with a slight smile. The feeling of slight malaise and creeping nausea suddenly seemed somehow cozy, reminiscent of the elderly couple's quiet life. I went downstairs, where Zilong and Su Wanru were animatedly arguing over which movie to choose for the evening. Seeing me, Zilong exclaimed joyfully, Brother Fan, there's going to be a horror movie marathon at your place today. I brought all the props, we're going to have a blast. Such pranks are forbidden in my house. No pranks, please, Gu Qinghan's voice came from behind me. That's right, this is my home. The last thing I need is for you to be catching ghosts here, she added. I turned around and saw Gu Qinghan crouched by the refrigerator. She reached for a bottle of ice water, but I immediately walked over and intercepted her. You haven't recovered from your cold yet, no ice. Drink this instead, I handed her the milk. Gu Qinghan silently stood up from the floor. She looked at the milk carton in my hands, took it, and with a quiet sigh replied, Why can't I be the one taking the initiative today? I felt awkward and thought about her words for a second. Gu Qinghan was probably right. It seemed I'd been completely blind to what was happening before. At that moment, the lights in the living room suddenly went out. I turned around and saw Zilong, who had already managed to remove all the props and was acting according to his plan. A dim red light came on. He smiled and told Gu Qinghan and me that he wouldn't be catching any ghosts, but the atmosphere had to match the film. And indeed, the room instantly transformed into a horror film set. I couldn't help but swallow. Gu Qinghan looked at me and smiled slyly. Someone's hand gently tugged at my sleeve, pulling me closer to the TV, where the action was beginning.